it functions as additional functionality that Excel, in addition to what Excel gives you now. Okay, and it gives you that connectivity to connect into and get to your data in GP, which Excel by itself, it doesn't just do out of the box. So once this is installed on your workstations, which I know is being done as we speak, okay, and once we then make sure that your configurations are set right, which we'd have to do, so you won't be able to just do it right now on your system, but you'll have this new little thing up top that says JET. Okay, it may be before the help, after the help, before the view, it's somewhere in this area, typically towards the end. And that ribbon looks like this, what you see up top. Once we have it activated and set up for you, because there is an activation piece that's under this help where we can activate your license. You've got
David?
multiple licenses. Yes.
So maybe we should just do a quick check to make sure everyone can see the screen and the screen's large enough for everyone to be able to see what you're pointing to. So Peter, can you see the screen clearly? Peter, good?
I'm good.
Okay. Diane? Randy?
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
If you need to make it larger, if you're not used to it, if you bring your cursor to the right of where the Excel sheet is, you can actually make the screen larger or smaller, either by hitting the plus or the minus, or by hitting the bottom icon which says, well, the plus or the minus is the best way to do it. So you
Right.
can make the screens larger or smaller right there. So thank you, David. Please continue.
So depending upon what type of user you are, there's two types of users. There are designers, okay, and there are viewers. Designers let you do what we're going to do today, which is design a report, create the report. Okay, viewers have the ability to only run a report or view a report. They can't design it or change the report at all as far as the layout or what the data that it's bringing you. Okay, running it lets you, if there are like a date range or something, when you run it, it will let you put in the date range or any other options that were specified when it was designed. And then you can run the report and you can save it. And when you save it, it saves it without any formulas per se. So it saves it with the data that it populated. And it brings over all the formatting and everything else that you would normally do in Excel. That stays with the report when you run it. And you define that when you're defining or designing the report. So we'll go over who has what rights, but the important thing is to understand the whole process. So now this can hook into your GP data in your GP system. That means general ledger, accounts receivable, accounts payable, whatever modules you have in there, you're able to generate a report or create a report using any or all of that data, assuming you have the right permissions within GP to get to that data, obviously, because it does check that. So there are several ways of using this to create reports. We're going to go through a few of them. It'll show you some of the basic functionality. There's some more sophisticated functionality as we get further and deeper into this, and we'll explain how that works. Since I know an immediate need has to do with GL reporting, we can give some examples with GL, but this will work the same with accounts receivable, accounts payable, right? Similar ideas. So along the top, I want to explain what's on this ribbon. So again, you'll only see this design over here on the left. You'll only see this if you're a designer. If you're not a designer, only a viewer, all you have is run. You don't have the design and a few of these others. They'll be grayed out. We'll skip a few of these things because we'll come back to some of them. Okay. Over here, this NL, if I just click the little down arrow, you'll see there's an NL, an NF, an NP, a GL. This is where we're going to talk about in a little while. But these are the additional functions. Think of them as an Excel function, just like you have sum and stuff like that that comes with with Excel, they've got various functions, and these are the top portions of those functions. There's a lot built behind these functions that let you add the capability that Jet adds to Excel. So we'll come back to them and what they mean. Then there's report options we'll come back to in a little bit. That's where you can set up the options so that when it runs, it might ask for the date range or which company or which range of accounts, whatever it is that you designed. Report Wizard we're not going to talk about right now. Table Builder we're going to work with. Browser we're going to work with. I'm going to skip snippets. Don't worry about pivot tables. This rest we're not going to really worry about right now. But there is some stuff in here for scheduling, so a report can run automatically at night and email out the report when it's done to various people. That's what that section does. In the settings, this is what we'll have to make sure is set up for each person. But these settings dictate, just basic setup behind the scenes stuff. But this does show you the company. Okay, so we have Dynamics GP. And over here, this is the actual company. So you have a test company, you have your main company, and this is the Fabricam company, the sample company that comes with GP. Okay, so we're going to use your actual company. Okay, so, and then settings, there's various settings that we can set in here, but you don't need to worry about that right now. So that's what this bar is about. Any questions on that before I proceed? Okay.
No, that's fine.
Pretty
So
simple.
David,
Yes.
a question for someone on your team, Peter. You're only going to be working in the one company, correct? At this point in time,
All I have in there.
which is your main company, correct?
Right. Just for now, it's one company. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought I was on mute. You guys have the power. So right now, it's one company. Ed and I are going to be meeting with our boss to figure out what joint ventures are doable. At some point, I may reach out to you guys again, Jim, so that you can, obviously, just make sure we're doing everything legit. But we may add a company, in the next couple of months. But at this point, it's kind of, and I do apologize, but as you know, lawyers get involved, things get complicated. But right now we'll start with the main company.
Good. And David, if they add a second company or a third company, can this be used for all three companies at the same time, like you need consolidated reporting? Using it.
Yes,
Very good.
sure can.
All right, so just for the back of your minds, list staff, that's something you guys can work on down in the future when you have multiple. All right, thank you, David. Please proceed.
So the first thing that I want to do is show you this little browser button up here. And again, there are several ways to be able to create the data for a report. And depending upon the report, you start with one thing and then go deeper into a different way to expand on it. But the browser is one of the more simple ones. Okay, and that will bring up a window that we can then go find the fields that we want and drag them onto the report. Can't get too much simpler than that. Okay, now it can get more complicated if you have to deal with data from multiple tables, but we're not getting to that level of detail today, or at least not now. So if I click on browser right up top here, it opens up this window. I can make this larger. Okay, this window now shows me the company that I'm in, okay? And down here on the left-hand side, these are all the tables that are in GP. Now, some of them actually have some names that you can see. The others have just this is what they're actually named on the computer. And this is the number next to it is an option that we have turned on that shows you how many records are in that table, which is sometimes helpful. Is there a question?
Oh, just good job.
So there is also a thing where we can have friendly names. So I might be able to put that in. We'll have to take a look. I thought I had it in. But they also come with some Jet tables, which they're sort of tables. They're actually views, but what they do is they pull together the most common data that you might want to use together that comes from multiple tables. So you don't have to worry about how do I pull data from multiple tables at the same time. They all start with the name JET. So if I go up to the top here under tables in the little search, I can type in JET, okay, and it automatically brings me to that area. So you can see they have a whole lot of predefined ones in here already. So here's one for GL transactions, one for the GL accounts, right,
Nice.
etc. And what you can do is if you click on one, on the right-hand side, it brings up all the fields that are part of that table or view. So these are what are available to me to drag into my report. Now, there are a lot. Now, again, we'll come back to specifics in a minute. But one of the other things is you see there's a little star over here. You can add this as a favorite. So if this is one that you're going to use a lot, you don't always have to go searching for it. So I could just click on this, and now that'll be one of my favorites. You can also do that with the fields. I tend to not do that with the fields as much because I'd rather see all the fields available to me for that table and then select what I want. But here's GL account. That's a popular one. GL transactions is extremely popular, right? So I can click those two. Then you have like customer master, right? That's a popular one. You have vendor master, which is probably further down here. Vendor master, you have et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have sales transactions. So I just clicked a few of these. So you'll notice that what I could do is if I click the little star up at the top where the search button is, now it'll only show me the ones that I've starred in the past. This stays, by the way, it stays. It doesn't reset every time you leave the system, otherwise it would be pretty much useless. Okay. So far, so good.
Yep.
So
Awesome.
what we'll do is we'll go to like the GL account. And I can see, well, maybe I want the GL number, which account number. Sometimes you have to look at it and say, well, what do they call that field, right? You might be thinking of an account number. You might think of it as, oh, GL number, right? Well, here they call it account number. I think it's obvious though. So what I could do is I can click on a field, multiple fields that I might want to take and drag onto the report. So it goes in the order in which you click them. Okay, and you have to hold down the control key so that you can select multiple ones at the same time. Or you can do one at a time and drag them. But if I click on account number, then let's say next to account number, I want description. Okay, I can then hold down control, click description. Now I've got these two already set. Okay. Do you guys use, no, that's fine. We'll just leave it at that. Now these other areas, I don't know what your account number breakout is, but if you have multiple segments in your account number, but you can actually, you'll see they have the different segments, 1, 2, 3. So we can actually have it break that out, and you'll see some reasons why that's helpful in a little while. Now
David,
yes.
I'm sorry, I have one question. Can those fields be renamed, or that just the system itself?
They can't be renamed here, but on your report, you can call things whatever you want.
Awesome. All right, great. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay. So while these are highlighted, now I could just click on well, I have to hold down my control key. I can now click and drag over to somewhere on the report on Excel and let go. Okay. And what it will do, let me try it again. What it should do is bring it over there for you. Let me just try this again. Account number, description, drag it over. It's not letting me drag for some reason. Lovely. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I just had to wait. I was impatient. Okay. So it just added, well, it added account number because I let go because I didn't know what was going on. But let me show you what it's done. It's added a few things up top. It's added this stuff over here. Okay. Let's understand what it's doing, because this is a basis behind all the different ways of using the product. Even if you don't use the browser, you'll learn how to create this without the browser later on once we get to that level or that point. Okay, the browser is just an easy way to get simple stuff out and quick. Okay, because you can see I can create a report like that in 2 seconds. So let me give you an example. So column A and row 1, these are special columns and rows. You don't put anything in there. I mean, there's some special commands you can put in them. Okay, but don't put any of your data. Don't start in column A to put the account number, for instance. Column A, row 1 are special to JET. It looks at that for special commands. So that's important. And what a lot of people will do is they'll change the color of these so that anywhere where you don't want to show where we're just going to put stuff, you might change the color. If you go to the home button up top, a lot of people might make it yellow. So I could do the fill. This is just normal Excel stuff. You don't have to do this. This is just a way of signifying to yourself, these are special, don't go over there. Okay. Now you can have as many as you want, but yeah, the first row and first column are definitely ones that are hidden, okay, and can only contain special commands. There are a few of them. So you'll notice it put hide up here. It also changed the color. Again, they just do that for obvious, easy identification. Doesn't have to be this lighter color. But what they've done is this command up top says hide this column. Don't show it. Fit, okay, fit will expand a column to however wide it needs to be. Notice it's not very wide now. Doesn't fit the whole number. But when I go and run it, it'll automatically expand out to fit the widest account number. So that'll help if we put the description in too, because I don't know how wide the description is for every single account. So let's look at what it actually did. Don't worry about this one in the top left corner. We'll talk about that later. So in F9, it gave me this whole little thing here. Notice this is basically a new function that JET added to Excel that didn't exist in Excel before. So we have to understand what we don't have to, but we'll need to understand what it's doing so that we can create more sophisticated reports in a little while. I'm not going to do anything yet. But suffice it to say, this is where it knows to get the data. And then any columns that I have to the right of this are referencing this one because it knows, okay, what data are you talking about? So I already pulled the account number on here. Now maybe I want to pull the description because I didn't before. So if I click on description, drag it where I want it, again, in that same row, I drop it, and now it added description. And see, that's wide. Now, it automatically put fit on there for me because it knows typically you'd put fit on a column unless you don't want it to expand and contract. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So at this point, I've actually created a report that I can run. So if I come back to the JET ribbon up top, and I click the run command, it will run this. So I can close this. So if I click run, it goes out and it's looking for all the general ledger accounts. I didn't restrict anything. I just said return the accounts. There's ways of restricting things. Okay, and it's going to pull the descriptions.
Oh, that's
Notice
sweet.
it also widen the columns as necessary. Okay. Very simple, very straightforward. This little down arrow here, which won't do anything right now, but that is a drill down function. So when we do start putting numbers and stuff here and totals of things, you can click on it and it will drill down and show you the not into GP, but it'll show you in a window that you can then, not in Excel itself, but in a window within JET, that you can then either filter stuff more, you'll see later at another session, or you can throw it out to Excel and then even do more with it. So it'll give you all the detailed transactions behind that number. Any questions so far?
This is great.
So now, if I want to go back and continue doing stuff, for instance, I might want to bold these and underline this or something. You have to always remember, people tend to get stuck here. The people that are not stuck but confused, go to design, gets you back into design mode. So if you're a designer, person that creates the reports, sometimes you forget to go back there and you start highlighting things, and then you're like, oh, garbage. Because then what happens is it'll go away unless you're in design mode. So I can come in here, I can go back and do the normal stuff that you normally do in Excel. I might want to bold this, I might want to underline it, I might want to change it to blue, right? I don't know, whatever. Now when I run it again, okay, it keeps that formatting, and you'll see whatever else that you've done stays. Okay, now it's going to go a little slower because I'm on the shared session, but you get the idea. Same thing with numbers. You can format them, and totals, even graphing. Okay, which we're not going to get into today. Let me go back to design mode. Now under run, you'll see that there's a few different options under the little arrow. There's run from cache, and run in background. So run is the one used when you want to go out and grab the latest data, etc. Run from cache, well, it tells you here, but it'll run faster, but it's not going to go out and grab all of the data necessarily, right? So it's to give you a better, it'll take the data that you ran with last time and apply it to this. So it'll run faster. So when you're designing something, you might want to run from cache sometimes. Run in background lets you run it and go do something else while it's running. Otherwise, it sort of locks up Excel and you have to wait till it finishes running. Okay. Obviously, it runs a little slower that way than it would if you gave it all the attention of your computer. Okay. So that's run. Okay. So let's now notice, well, let me just run it again. I can run it from cache, be a little faster. But when I run this, one of the things that you'll notice is, see this A is going to disappear and F is going to disappear and row 1 is going to disappear. See how they're not there?
Mhm.
I could actually drag it out and see them, but it hides them because we told it to hide them. That's what those special commands were. And you'll see how that comes into play here and with the importance, because you can do all sorts of things. I'm going to come back out of here. So here was that hide. That's why it hid this. This one also says hide. So it gets rid of it here, so you don't see it. And of course, hide is also on 1 going across. Okay, that's why you don't put anything in A or row 1. So let's pull this apart a little to understand what this was really doing, because to get any real further into this without using necessarily the browser and using some of these commands that they give you, okay, we'll want to understand how to use these new commands. So I'm going to expand F here because this way we can see this whole thing down here, or at least some of it, give you an idea. So I'm going to click on it. We see it all in here, but you don't have to memorize all the different what goes here, what goes here, what goes here, what goes here. Okay, what's nice is when you go over a cell that has a jet function in it, you can just click this little jet button up here. Okay, now you'll notice this one says @NL. And when I click this little down thing here, there's an NL, there's also NF, there's also NP, there's also GL. We're going to learn all of these. Okay, they have different functionality. Okay, the L typically stands for a link. Okay, F for a field. This is how I try to remember them. Okay, GL stands for general ledger. that's a very basic way if you want to get some GL information out, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's a bit different than these other ones. And NP are really just additional functions. I don't know what the heck the P really stands for. Everybody has their own thoughts, okay? But it's sort of additional functionalities you can add to the NF or NL or just by itself. We'll get to them in time. The ones that are used the most, this NL and NF, are used throughout, and they're used together. Now, once you're over a field, no matter whether it's an NL, an NF, whatever it is, you can just click whatever one is up here, this button. It doesn't matter if it says NL and this is an NF function. It'll open up the right one. So if I click on it while I'm over it, it brings up the window. Remember how I said you don't have to memorize what goes where in that formula? That's because they have a window here to help explain it all. Okay, so you don't have to memorize that. I'm going to expand this a little so you can see the whole thing. Now we'll see what it's already filled in for us. It wants to know, so what we're defining here, let me just move this to the right. We're saying that we want rows. Now that there you can have several different things in the what, okay? For right now, all we care about are rows. This is called a replicator. And I'll just show you this, all different functions here. The ones you're gonna use the most, okay, is rows, and first. You'll use those more than anything else here. Okay, some of these you'll never use. But those are the two that you're going to use the most. Okay, you may also use columns. That's a little more advanced, but we'll get to that in a future session. Okay. So rows, what that's telling it is, I want to define a row, as many rows as are necessary. We only have to define it once, but as many rows as necessary to return the data I'm telling it. So what table do I want to grab my data from? So remember, we dragged it out from that JetGL account table or view. So it filled that in for us. Otherwise, you can click down here and here's all those tables. So if you knew the table, or if you didn't drag it in and you wanted to go back, you can type Jet and find the one that you wanted. And then these are the fields that we pulled on. We pulled on the, excuse me, let me just get some water. So we pulled on two fields, account number and account description. Okay, again, you can pull them down and find the fields you want. Down here are where we can limit the data by telling it we want filters. Okay, so we might only want segment 2 between this value and that value. We could do that here. Okay, we'll use this in a little while. We're not ready for it yet. When we click OK, then it puts it here. So that's the basis behind an NL function. We'll do some more stuff with it in a little while. We'll build stuff from scratch. And then account number, this is using that NF. Remember I said NL and NF get used together. So this defined the link to the data that we wanted. Okay, and this defines the fields that we want. Now, I do notice, if I go back to this one, you will notice that we did define the fields in here. It's not necessary to do that, but that's how their system works when it creates it. You could leave this blank, okay? And then that just basically says, go find all the records in the GL account table, okay? And then over here on the NF is where we can do the same thing. Now, if I click the NF up there, it's going to bring open a window where I could define the same information that I'm going to want for my fields. So I can tell it what fields based off that link did I want. Let me just switch my battery on my headset. Hang on, please.
Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Okay, I'm back.
David, can you repeat that again? The NL with the NF.
Yes, and we're gonna go over them quite a bit.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll get tired of them after a while. So, so NL is where you define a link to the table that you want to get the data from. Okay, and NF then points to that link, or you point it to that link in the end that you had in the NL to say, okay, the data that link got, what fields do I want? Which is what this is doing. So notice it's asking for a key and it says F9. Well, that's here. That's where our NL function is. So it's saying go to NL, go to F9, because that's where it knows what table to look at to get the data and any filters that I might have, etc. And then once you do that, it knows what fields the system has. Now, in this case, we only limited it to 2 fields, but if we didn't actually put those fields in there in the NL, then it would give us all the fields here, and we'd select the ones that we want. Now, you'll also notice that they have the $ in front of the F. Okay. Now, there's a good reason for that. It's not necessary, but it helps you, and this is just general Excel knowledge. If I put the $ in front of the F, then if I copy the same formula and move it over to here, because you can copy and paste formulas, it's going to keep the F because we don't want it to change the column as I copy to the right, keep the column. Now, you could just point to it and not put it, but this lets you, I'm going to modify this in a minute and you'll see why that's helpful with the $. We'll come back to that in a second. So I'm going to cancel this. Okay. So we've seen this run. We know what it does. Okay. Let's modify this slightly so you can get a better understanding of this. So I go back to the NL, pull this up again. Let me get rid of this field here and click OK. You see, that should have worked. Hang on. Okay. Maybe it won't with their build. We'll have to do that in a little bit ourselves. But when we build it ourselves, you'll see that we don't have to define all of that. So when we run this, this gets hidden and it returns that information. So if I got rid of this one over here, let me just delete this. Remember I said if you copy this. So if I copy and paste this over here, now it's gonna, I did Control-C, Control-V. It's got the same information because I copied the same formula. But notice how the F stayed the same, F9, right? Because we told it to keep the F consistent. I don't know how many, is everybody familiar with that whole $ going in front of either a row or a column? Is there anyone that's not familiar with that?
Yeah, we're familiar.
Okay, great. Most people that use Excel quite a bit know that. Now, the reason we're not locking then they call it locking it down in JET terminology. Well, the reason we're not locking down the 9 or the row is because it's automatically going to replicate this down. So we want it to change the row, obviously, as it goes down. Okay, we don't want to change the column as it's going across. That's why that's called a replicator, that rows functionality here. Okay, so if I go back to here, you notice I copied across. So now if I can come back into the JET function, I could just change this account number and change it over to description, right? That's all. Now we're where we were before.
Nice.
Okay. So that's some simplistic ways of getting to some data. Now, we're going to build some other stuff ourselves, so we'll get a little more familiarity with how these things work and start getting some numbers into here and use it for some things that you might want to use it for. I'm going to delete all this. Anybody have any other questions so far? Just delete Start anew. Okay. Great. So next, let's think about, I might want to see general ledger information. Now, there is a special function, GL. It's got very limited use. It only reports back on general ledger information, where these other ones can report back on any data in the system. But I'm going to show you what the GL1 is about. Okay. So again, I'll just start someplace in here. It doesn't matter where, as long as it's not A1, the row or column. And I'll come down here and I'll click the GL function. Now, there's another way you could do this. If I just click the NF, that whatever it is that's up here, I can also change to the GL one or one of the other ones from up here. You notice in the bar, I could just, boom, click GL. And now it changed to a GL function. Just another way of doing that. So this one's a little different. Okay, again, you got to learn how these different options work in time. This one's geared just towards general ledger, nothing else, like I said before, which is good for certain reporting and not as flexible for other reporting. But it is a more simplistic one, so I like going over initially because it helps you understand how to use the easier stuff to do. So if I click down here, again, we have cell, rows, columns, and sheets. Okay, we're not going to talk about the sheets or columns right now. They're more advanced. We'll cut to that at another time. Okay, but we do have rows and we have cells. Okay, so they kind of tell you a little bit about it right here. So if I click rows, it says, again, it's a replicator, if you want to call it. That's what they call these. What this does is, I say on this row, and I can only have one row function on a row at a time. It wants to know, what do you want on that row? I can click down here. Well, I probably want the accounts. Again, I only have limited information here. Accounts, categories, or the segments of an account. Let's say I want the account. Now I could specify a specific account. If I click down here, or specific accounts. If I click and control, click, I can have specific ones, but typically you'll leave it blank. And I could just hit OK. Now I could define it further down here. I could say, well, only things that have a 00 in segment 1, or 12 in segment 2, or something like that. Okay, these are ways of sort of filtering it. Okay, I can also come down here and say I want a budget. I don't know if you have budgets in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you do. So this is how you'd report on budget information too. This company, let's just pick which company. So as Jim asked earlier, can you report on multiple companies at the same time? Yes, you can. And this is one of the functionalities we'll use later on, not today, on how to do that. Data source you're not going to need. We're only pulling this from one place, GP. And they do have start and end periods, so you can define date ranges. Obviously, that's going to come into play in a little bit. But if I just click OK, I only filled in those top two. Boom, I've got it. It created the formula for me right here in the function spot. Okay, and it pulls in the first record that it finds. That's all. If I run this now, okay, what it's going to do is going to go out there and make a row for every GL account number. Pretty straightforward, right? Now notice it didn't widen the column. I think you all know why. I go back to design mode and I put the word what up here?
Fit.
Yeah. That will now do that. I run it again very simplistically. You'll see.
David, either
now,
you're a good trainer or they're so smart. I'm not sure.
David's a good trainer.
Okay, very simplistic, very simple. Okay, now I might want to give it a title, GL account number, whatever, bold. Got the idea. Okay, now let's go back over here to the right. Now I want more information. I want more information. I click the GL button again. Okay, now this time I'm not going to use rows again because if you recall, I said you can only use the rows option in here one time on a row. We've already used it. We used it in E, column E. I can't do another one on this row, but I can use cell. Again, I said columns and sheets we're going to deal with at another time, but cell you're going to use. So if I click cell, and you have to double click on these things, by the way, most things in here. Now it wants to know, well, what do you want in that cell? And again, I'm in this cell here, F9, it tells me over here which cell I'm in. Now, if I click down what do I want? Again, the GL function is very limited in what it can give you. Okay, I can have it report back the balance, the budget, the account name, or the category name. Well, let's put the account name. We want the account name. I double click that. Okay, that's it. I don't need to do anything else for that except the account. Okay, it doesn't know that the account is over here. All I've told it is give me the account name, but it's like, all right, well, which account name do you want? It doesn't know it's related to that F9 is related to E9. It doesn't know there's any link there. Okay, so if I go to account, I can now click on the cell that I wanted to use for the account, because this is filling the account in automatically, right? We already defined this. So now it knows, okay, for the account number that's in E9, I want to return the account name. Everybody catch that?
Yep.
If I left this blank, if I left account blank, it wouldn't know, well, what account do you want me to return the name for? It has no clue that this exists over here on the left. You have to tell it where to look. And since column E is returning all the GL account numbers, I can just point it to the column in that row and it will know to return that. So I can click OK. And look, it already filled it in. We know we want to put fit over here on the right too, don't we? And we'll put description. And we'll make it bold. Okay, well, that's pretty good. What else would we want? Well, you probably want the balance. So let's put a balance column. Okay, okay. But we don't have anything in this column. Now, again, I can make this bigger so that it's not overwriting it so I don't get confused. Okay, and we're going to put fit here too, so it knows. So what balance? Again, we go back to the GL. Once you're using the GL in this, you're always using the GL in this report. So I'm clicking GL. Which do you think we're using here?
Yeah.
Correct. Cell, because we already have a rows on this one where we can't do anymore. Cell is going to refer to whatever it is that we're doing on this row. Now it wants to know, well, what do you want? We want the balance. I only got a few more things I could do. Okay. We have to remember to tell it the account. The first time you guys are doing this, you're going to forget to fill this in. What account do we want the balance for? This one over here. So you could type it in here. If you click this little arrow, that's going to actually give you the account numbers, all the accounts. That's not how you want. You don't want to hard code this. We want it to change based upon every row and with the information it's returning. So that's why we're referring to E9. So I could type E9 in, or I could just double click here. There's E9. Okay. Now we might want to highlight this whole row, change the format. Maybe we want it dollars. Boom. Okay, maybe we want this, right, justified, whatever, you get the idea.
Mhm.
Now if I run this, it's going to go back and it's going to pull all this information. Give me a second. Any questions on what we've done so far? Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
David, can I ask a question while this is running?
Yeah, that's
So-
what I asked.
So
Question.
Peter and your team, you see where, you know, the whole idea, ideally, is we have you guys using JET as David's teaching you, so you can reinforce what you're seeing, right? Because I don't know about you, but I can take pretty good notes, but until I'm doing it, it's hard for me to really totally get it.
Right.
You guys agree?
Yep.
We just can't do that right now because all their systems weren't set up in time, Jim.
Yeah, no, I get it. No, I
Yep.
totally get it.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing this up just to, you know, reinforce the point that we really want to, by the next session, have everyone able to get in. And Peter, as you know, we even wanted to make sure that anyone that can't get access to GP, we want to help you guys make sure those issues are resolved before the next session. So,
Hey, I have a question, Jim. You guys now allowed to go on site?
Yeah,
are
not
we
yet.
allowed to go on site? David,
Yeah,
I guess they're asking, would you come on site?
Yeah, because we have a training room now.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
not
the
done
problem-
with training.
The problem
worries,
with the train, the problem with the training, if we're doing training, Peter, we'd like you to all be in front of the machines that you're going to be using
Okay. All right.
during
You
the
did.
sessions, right?
Yep.
Right?
Because
And
normally
again,
what I would do at this point is I would have stopped and had people do stuff on their computer and then come back and then see who had problems, right? And that people can do that when they're at their desk.
Okay. I mean, whatever you
Why
guys.
this is taking so long. It shouldn't take this long, but
Yeah,
I
no.
guess,
I just got to note that our system is slowing down, so it could be on our end, Dave.
okay. We'll give it another minute. You
now,
click the little
Peter, you
D.
want me to come out? If you want me to come out to buy me lunch, that's a different story. But for training,
Hey.
it wouldn't be ideal to
Hey,
have
got
someone
that in?
there.
We got to bring Jim in for lunch. You're always welcome, Jim. That way you can check out the new site.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of other clients right in your area, so it'd be very cool. So.
Okay.
So while it's running, you can always click this details drop down here. I don't suggest you leave it open though, because it will slow it down actually, because it's reporting back what it's doing. You can see it's doing work.
Yeah.
This is how it's getting its data. Okay.
That's slow.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
We get the point, guys.
Okay. So I'll cancel this. Canceling takes a little bit too.
So like you said, David, normally at this point you'd have them try to do it themselves, right? To reinforce what you were showing up.
Correct.
But it's also not a bad idea. This is the first time, am I correct, other than maybe Ed? Everyone's just taking a look at this for the first time? Is that right, Peter?
Yeah, no, you're right.
So what are your thoughts about this so far? Does this look like a tool?
I am really impressed, guys. I love the fact that we can, as you mentioned, Jim, and Jim, you obviously hit it on the nose. You know, one of our biggest issues is that we want to delegate reporting to mostly, you know, our key staff members. You know, we have Randy and now Diane as well, and you know, at least we want to kind of get them empowered, and frankly myself, so that we can obviously everyone be able to report. And my goal is to increase efficiencies throughout the network, and at some point, you know, even rolling this out to staff members, you know, whether it's a canned report or even a simple drill down report. So I'm very impressed.
Very good. Randy and Diane, what do you think? Since you guys, I heard you guys are pretty good with Excel. What do you think?
No, it looks good. I've used Essbase with Oracle, and it seems pretty similar to that.
We can assure you it's much simpler than Oracle, but yes, it is similar. So, because it is a reporting tool from Excel that they have for Oracle. Very good. You know, and one other thing to keep in mind, I know, I think I spoke to you about this, Peter, is that this reporting tool called JET, David's going to be focusing on how you get data from Great Plains in these reports. But David, I am correct. You can get data from other sources because they do have a myriad of other sources over there that they use to run their business. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Wow,
Yes.
awesome. Good to know that.
Right? And David's just showing you the reporting, but down the road, then he'll show you all the sexy stuff like the dashboards and things that, hey, you can do in Excel today, but that'll all be what you can then make available to your team members down the road once you're using this tool.
So, Jim, maybe you and I at some point should, if you do come by, maybe you meet with Ed and I can show you how we get data from our billing system. Because David, you may not be aware of this, but we have like 3 major platforms plus other ancillary platforms, and we even have a separate payroll platform called UltiPro, and 2 of the platforms share BI, Cognos BI, but they don't interface, and that's a problem that we're having. So we can get this data to even pull basic data. I think this can save us some time.
Is that data is in SQL databases? Do you know?
I believe most of it is, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I confirm that with our people.
Okay. Because you have a connector that pulls data from SQL basically, which is what GP is, and many other products are. But if you want to pull data from like Excel and some other things, then you would have to get another connector. They do charge by connector, but typically SQL is the one used most, and you have that.
Okay, I'll confirm with our people here.
David, just one other point about that topic, if I may, is that Peter, I know you know, there's other reporting tools other than JET that we are experts on and we help clients with. I've mentioned some of them to you over the years, but this is the easiest one to connect to other products. So it's not easy in that it can be done in like an hour by anybody, but it's much easier than many of the other reporting tools on the market. And you mentioned Cognos, right? So if some of those systems aren't pre-built for something, it's tens of thousands of dollars at best to get something to work. And JET is much easier to do connections to other systems. So just keep that in the back of your mind too.
I will.
Thank you.
Dave,
Yeah.
Ed, Dave,
Yes.
Dave. Okay. I'm using these jets, the basic. Okay. So when I'm doing when I'm doing the March, okay. So when we go back, when I do the March financial statement or April, and then I did April already, and then there are invoices that we need to go back and enter in April, but I finished the financial statement. That it will change the the numbers in the financial statement.
Yeah. If you post something back, and you already ran the financial statement for March, and then you post something in April back for March, it will update your
Yeah.
when you run the report, it will be updated. Yes.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing I'm worried about. So we need to, when I'm done with the April, we need to really to date the invoice or what the entry in May, so it will not change anything in the previous month.
Right.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah. It's working off the GL. In this case, it's working off the GL posting date. So when you
That's the thing that I'm worried about. So
Well, David, can I jump in a second?
Whenever there's
people,
an invoice in the previous.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Whenever there's an invoice, okay.
A lot of people, once they're done with a month and close a month, there's a way where you can, in GP, stop people from posting to that closed month. I don't know if you use that function.
Yeah, I have to close the fiscal period.
Yeah.
The fiscal period, but we need to date when I open it. When I enter and then I close the fiscal period, it will not accept that invoice dated prior. So I need to date that on the current month. So it will not touch any numbers in the the previous financial statement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess
Jim?
I'm confused.
Right.
Ed, what exactly is your issue? Is it that you want the data to be updated? You don't feel the data should be updated?
No, 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 no. No, I'm done with the if I'm done with March and there are invoices for March, I need to go back to March and enter the March. But I mean, what you should do now is to date the invoice after March already, so it will not be included in the when I run the, because I'm done with the March financial statement. If there is invoice March, so I need to go back and enter the invoice for March. But it
That's
will
fine.
change the numbers in March.
Well, I mean, like, well,
So
there's
it's
two
not
ways.
fine because
Go ahead.
it's not fine because I'm done with the financial statement.
Okay, no, I get
And
that,
Ed,
but so if
and Ed, you know that you can date it in March, but post it to April, correct? You know that. Is that what you're doing today?
Yeah, I can date in April. That's what I'm trying to do now. I'm thinking of doing it now instead of going back and record the March invoice in March. It will be dated in April already.
right, that was my point, Jim.
So
I
it will
think
not touch the can.
right.
Right.
I think that was my point, that we can do that we can date it correctly, but the posting is done, for lack of a better word, in the next financial period, whatever that is. And also, if the data is immaterial, I don't really mind, whatever it is. So if it's material, then I concur with Jim. I believe you can do either or.
Right, because what you're bringing up, Ed, is what every customer is concerned about. I do all my work, I finish a month, I close it, I present everything. I don't want that to change. You have the advantage in Dynamics GP that you can just close the general ledger at any time and then open it if we need to, but you have control on that. Other systems don't always have that same control.
Right.
So just be aware of it. You have a great system to do that. And it's just a matter, as Peter said, what's the business issue and how do you want to handle it? That's up to your policy within your organization.
So we like our financials to be not to change, Jim, just because it's reported to the board of directors.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's the only reason why we like it to keep it as consistent as possible. And then obviously, the next month, we catch up.
Yep. Yeah. And again, you have the controls, Peter. I think you're aware that you can limit who has access to the area of Great Plains that lets you hard close a month, right? So that no one else could post something to it. And those individuals, though, do have the option to go in and uncheck it to post something to it if it needs to be done. So it's very important, if that's something you want to use going forward, that you really limit who has access to that particular section of Great Plains. Make sense?
Yep, no, absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. So I didn't let it run the whole way because I don't know, it's very slow for some reason, but that's okay. So let's try to take this a little bit further. By the way, when it has a little thing like that on the side here, the little caution symbol, you can go over it and it tells you what the deal is. We stopped it in the middle, so you can't really base it on that. So that's one way, and that returns everything. Now, that's all well and good. And what we might want to do is limit this information so we don't have this issue, for instance, right now. You might want a date range. You probably don't want every piece of, you don't want it to go back and calculate all balances for all time. Maybe I want to see the month, right, in this balance here. So maybe we want to limit that. Maybe we want to limit the GL accounts that we want to return. Those are options. Remember up at the top, I had this one button here on the jet ribbon called report options, and I told you I would come back to this. Well, that's something we can now start to define is the report options. So I can come in here, I click a button, it opens up a window. Now this is the same window that will open up when you run the report once you have options defined. So I can come in here, I could say maybe I want date range. Okay. Maybe we want a default value in here, maybe we don't. Okay. Now, if you want to do a range, you put dot dot in between the first and the last. So let's say we want to see January information. I put 01/01/2021 dot dot 01/31/2021, right? Forget the tooltip for now. Forget lookup for now. Oh, what happened? Just went away. Okay. So you see how I did that? Now I didn't have to put anything in there. I could have left it blank and made the person type it in, but let's say I just want that in there. I could type close. You're going to see some things happen here. Okay. Notice there's now an options tab at the very bottom. Didn't have that before. Let me click on that. Now it's got some stuff in here. Let me just widen everything here so we can see it. Again, column A and row 1 are special. We'll leave them alone. Okay. But it automatically put my option in here. Look, date range, and it had a default. Okay. Option, I can actually come in here and instead of doing this report options, start typing my own options. I put option and then what I want it to be and a default. Forget these other ones for now. There's several others that you could use here. But we just want that for a moment. Okay. So you notice it put it here. So when I actually run the report, it's going to pull up a window that looks like the report options window, let you fill it in, right? You can't change. It's going to ask you for the ones that were already predefined, but you can change the values. And then it runs the report using those values. What it does is it takes it, it puts that value right in here. It knows that that's the one, right? That option date range, and it puts it into this C2 in this case field. Well, I could refer to that C2 in my other sheet. So let me go back to my sheet here. So I might want to say, well, up top, you just might have, the name of the report, right? And other things. And I might say date range, again, probably not exactly how you would do it, but the general idea. Okay. Maybe I'll right justify that. Okay. And then over here, I'm going to put the equal sign, go to my options, click on this field. I'm going to hit F4 so I lock it down. Not 100% necessary, and now it pulls that field onto my report, right? Which that's standard Excel functionality. And the only thing that's new is it created the options for us, and we just have to know that we can use these fields where it puts the value when they select the option when they're running the report. Hopefully that's clear. Now that I have that, and I don't have to put it on this sheet, I could leave it on the other sheet, but the report runs faster if you have it on the sheet that it's running from when we start to use that as a filter, which we're going to do in a moment. Now, if I didn't want to show it, but I still want to put it on this sheet, I could have put this, over here, anywhere over here, and I could have put hide and it won't show this, but it would still be there that I can reference it. So let me put that back. So now I want to limit this balance, don't I? I don't want everything. So if I go back to this balance and I click back, I go to the jet ribbon, I click back on the function. Okay. Now there's start period and end period. Look at that, right? Oh, I don't have the start and end period here. I had them put a range in. So what's the start? What's the end? Well, this is where you can start getting into some other fancy things that don't have to be on your report. Now, let me close that. I could have asked separately. I could have said, give me the start date and give me an end date in 2 separate fields, which is what I would normally do. But I wanted to show you how you could break something out. Okay, you could break this out and wherever you want. Let's say I do it over here off on the side and I'll hide this. And I can have it just return the first, up to the first dot and then the last so many characters and stuff like that. So you have the ability to break that out, hide that function that you're using to do things, to break it out. You have all of that capability. That's regular Excel stuff. You can do all sorts of things like that. You'll see that at a later session not today, when we start having it pull multiple columns for like months. And we're only defining it in one column, but it'll actually expand out as many columns as we want it to. So let's change this. We'll go back to report options and let's put start date. Okay, and I'll do 01/01/2021. Again, you don't have to put anything in there. And end date. And that's going to be 01/31/2021, just to keep it simple. Close. Now, if I go back to options, look, it updated it there for me. Now, I could have typed it all directly here myself. The other way is just a little, I like doing it the other way because that's what's going to present to people. And you don't have to memorize anything. Okay, so now if I go back to my sheet, date range. Wow, now it's only got the start date. Well, there's a lot of things you can do here. This is assuming you want to show this. You don't have to show this. But if I wanted to, I could use regular Excel capability and say that I want to be the options, right? And then I can do ampersand, and then in quotes, dot, dot, close the quotes, ampersand, and then I want to point to the end date. And it gave it to me that same way, right? However you want, or I could say who, you know. So you have all of that kind of functionality that's built into Excel. The important thing that I wanted to point out here is you can use this data that's getting pulled back, whether it's in the options window or down in the data, to do something else on with regular Excel functionality. So it all works together. So now that I did that, I go back to balance and I click on the jet function. Okay, well, what's the start period? What's the end period? Now, I just told you that you can point to it back in the options window, but I prefer, and it works faster, I'm going to close that, if you have this information on the sheet that you're filtering with. It actually runs faster. So maybe what I'll do is I'm going to put start date. I'm going to put end date. And maybe I won't put it right there. Maybe I'll put it, let me just move these up here, add it away. And then I want this to be equal to, I put equal normal Excel stuff to the start date here. I'll hit F4. Okay, actually I probably didn't want to hit F4. If anything, let me go back to that. I would have probably gotten rid of the 2, and I could just copy this down. I have the end date. If I lost anybody on that, you could have just put equal sign, go back to options, and click on this one. I just changed the formula so that I can copy it down. Now I don't want to show these 2 columns. This is where I'm going to keep stuff that I want to use for other things. So I'm going to put hide up top. So now all these are going to get hidden. And now I can refer to these 2 dates when I go back to my balance. So if I go to balance, I go to my function, start period. Well, I'm going to point up to here. I'm going to hit F4 because I do want to lock this down because this is going to copy down. End period, I'm going to point to this one. Again, you got to usually click a couple times. And I'm going to hit F4 to lock that one down. And that's that. I can click OK. Now you notice there's some other functionality down here. Include unposted. That's a yes or no. It's an option. You don't have to.
Guys, I have a question.
Yes.
So this is fascinating to me as a data nerd. Let's say that we wanted to run the current data that's in the GL, whether it's posted or not posted. Can we do that? In other words, one of my biggest concerns is that I want to know everything that's in the system, whether it's posted or not. Or do we have to post it?
Well, include unposted. If you set it to true, that will have posted and unposted.
Okay, no worries.
Otherwise, it leaves unposted out.
Okay.
Okay, so if I click OK here, now that's a filter that's on this balance. Now, maybe I also want to limit my account number range. Right? You have the same ability, you could do the same thing there. Let's try running this. I don't know if this will run faster or not, but we could just try running what we have. Boom. I could change these dates. I'll leave them. I put them there so that we didn't have to type. I put run. Now it's going to go out and it's going to grab the data based upon that filter, which is a start and end date. So all the transactions is going to total them up by account and give me the balance. I'd like to run so that I could actually show you the next step that I wanted to. Or else we'll leave that for our next example. Any questions on what I've done to this point by anybody?
Diane,
So-
Randy, you guys have questions?
Nope.
Okay.
So Peter,
So-
Yeah.
when you ask about posted and unposted, do you do that today? Do you do provisional postings today for financial reporting to see how it would impact the financials before you actually post them, or is that
Right, so
something
I
you're
do it
considering?
offline. Yeah, I do that offline, Jim.
No problem. Yeah, you can do it online now.
Yeah,
You could have
this
been
is
doing
awesome.
online with Management Reporter all over the years too, just so you know. But yeah, you can do definitely inject.
No, this is great because this gives us. Yeah, I knew we could do a management reporter. The problem was that obviously on my end it's the time, but this is obviously. It's great to see that it can be done in this regards, Jim. And frankly, to me, it seems a bit easier than at least what I was aware of. So this is
Yes,
really
agreed. Yes, agreed. Understood. Thanks.
So while I'm letting this run, I'll explain a couple more things. There's totals that you're going to want to be able to do too. So this does let you do totaling. And when you're doing totaling, you're using either the subtotal function that's in Excel. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that, which if you're not, it's something you should become familiar with, and I'll explain it more as we get more into our training, because it'll become evident where it's very helpful if you're not using it currently. And the sum function, which I'm sure everybody uses. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice is how I'm going to define the sum functionality. You'll use the normal sum function that you're used to, but we don't know how many rows we're summing because this expands dynamically. Could be 1, could be 10,000, could be 1,000,000 rows. I don't know. So how do I create the sum function, which is just a regular Excel function, to work when I'm designing a report, and all I have is it just shows me the one row that I'm working on, right? It's not expanded for me to figure out the range to make the sum function work. Well, what you do, and I'm just explaining it now while this is running because I'm hoping maybe this will complete. But what it does is, how you do it is you just create it where you want it, but you leave what they call an anchor row. Okay, all that is a blank row before your sum. So after the row that we define, so in this case, row 9, we leave row 10 blank, and we put our total on right over here at G11. The reason we leave the blank is because for our sum function, we're gonna have it sum from G9 to G10, and it'll put the sum on G11. That's telling Jet, it knows how to interpret that, saying, okay, for as much as you expand out past 9, it'll automatically expand itself. I hope that's clear.
Yeah,
But
can you repeat that again, David? I'm sorry.
sure. So when you have a row replicator like we have here, so you're only defining the one row and it's going to dynamically expand when it runs. If you're going to do a sum function to add up the numbers that it's expanding with, you have to leave an anchor row, which is a blank row, okay? And you include that anchor row in your sum function. So I would, in this case, I'd drag it between these two cells. So it'd be sum of G9 dot G10, right? The standard function, the standard standard syntax of the sum command. So it knows to include as many as it expands out to. That's the trick behind how sum works with these replicators, since you don't know how many rows something's going to be.
Okay.
If you don't do that and you just have the one, it's only going to give you that one amount as your total, which is obviously wrong. Okay, so that's how the sum function works. All right, here we go. Ran, thank goodness. Boom, so it returned all our numbers. I don't know what your numbers are supposed to be, but this should be the January numbers. We got a lot of accounts.
Yeah, we're kind of, we do have a lot of count.
Okay, which does add to the time that it does its thing. Okay, so now there's different things you can do with this. You can tell it to leave out all the ones that have 0, that have nothing, right? I'll show you how that works. There's a few different ways of doing that. I'll show you the slower way initially, but so that's what it just gave us. Now, if I go down to the bottom, I don't know how many rows you got. Got a lot, almost 33,000. Okay, another reason it took a while. I would want a total down here. Now, again, the sum function, I'm going to be doing it up at the top line. I don't know that it's going to be almost 33,000 lines long, right? So I can go back up to the top. Just do something here. Just saving something out here for a second. Oh, come on. Let me do this.
David, as you're doing that, did you go over how long this session is going to be?
No, it's scheduled till 1:30.
Peter, how would you like to, as David doing something, you want to go to 1:30? You want to go earlier because you're not doing training today? You're individually? What would you like?
No, that's fine, guys. Whatever you think we need.
Okay, good.
Well,
I'm going to be jumping off shortly because you're in good hands with David. I think what we want to cover he has handled today. But great. I was about to say, go ahead.
Thanks.
And if anybody starts to feel a little overwhelmed with too much for the day, also speak up, because I'm trying to only cover a certain amount so you don't get fried, And then what I'll be doing is working with Michael. We'll make sure that everybody's got the system so they could actually do what we've gone over, at least a little bit.
But my main thing was that we at least started. We started, right? We got some things done. This is I wanted Diane and Randy, and even Ed, to see how easier we can do things. And so this is great. We are planning for additional training in June. So in the meantime, I'll go over some of these notes for my team here, and but next time we meet, we'll be probably a bit more prepared.
Great. And just one other thought, then I'm going to jump off, is that, Peter, what we've observed over the years is that if we can have some rhythm to the training, even if the sessions are shorter, so that if at all possible, when schedules permit, it could be like every week for a few weeks at a time. We
Okay.
find that users can get a lot more value from that because they can learn something, practice a little, then they have a little homework in between, hopefully on things that really would help your business, and then come back next week, get answers to questions you have, and continue. So
Okay,
hopefully that
great.
makes sense.
I totally agree. Jim, do you want me to work that out with you
Yeah,
or
sure. Yeah, you
you
can
know?
work it out with me or Dave. It doesn't matter, either one.
Okay,
We're,
so all right, I'll send you an
we're the
email now.
same. We're brothers from another mother, so we're the same, Peter. So
So
it doesn't.
and then I'll loop in Ed as well, just so that we make sure everybody's on the same page. All right, that's great. I'll follow up then on this one.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. So this is the sum that I was talking about. So I could just do equals sum, open brackets, regular Excel functionality, but I have to include this anchor row. Now I can close it. Now it's just going to total to 1 because that's all I have. I don't know that it's 33,000 rows, but the fact that I had it go between this and include the anchor row, it knows to include anything that it expands to. Okay, I could put total. I could do this. I could bold this. Back to home, I could bold this. I could do, whatever. Okay. So now when I run, now I might want to hide this anchor row. I have to leave it there, but I could now put hide over here just like I did up on the first row. But again, column A is that special column, so I can put hide there and it will hide this.
Okay.
Now, there's one other special thing we could do here. Now, this will not speed it up any, but it will make the report smaller. I don't want ones that have a 0 over here to show. I don't want the accounts that show a 0. So this special function you can put up here in this second in B. Okay. So we have A is this, and B, I could put hide plus question mark. Now you're not going to memorize these necessarily, but they do have this stuff printed in their documentation. And I do have some screenshots of some stuff that I could share with you that'll help. But this now, I could put a formula. This question mark means hide or show. So hide plus question mark means maybe hide this, maybe hide something. Okay, so it's looking for the word show or hide in this column. I think it's really hide. I don't even know if show even means anything as long as not hide, but that's the normal functionality. So what I could put is a normal function in Excel and say, well, if this balance is equal to 0, then hide. Else show. Okay. Now it will either hide or show based upon what this value is.
Awesome. That's really good.
Okay. So now if I run this, I don't know if we'll run any faster. Let's see, maybe if we do run from cache.
Limit the GL accounts.
I'm sorry?
Can you just limit the GL account just a couple?
Yes, we could do that too. So I was starting to put that here. So we can put an account range. So if you come back over here, we do GL. Now we can hard code this in here, or we can have it where they put it in as an option. I was going to show you as an option.
Okay.
Okay. But notice we have a count. If I put a count here, then it'll only include that range that I have, or the ones. Now I can also come in here and just click on the ones I want, but we're not going to do that. Then you're hard coding it in there, which is not flexible.
Right.
So what I was going to do is we can put another option, report options, and I'll put account range. And let's just say, I don't know if you had ones in mind, I copied out just some that I knew had some stuff in it and some blanks in it. So if it's okay with you, I'll just throw this in there as at least the beginning. So it's going to be this, Oh, don't copy? Really? Come on. Okay. Dot. This.
Right. To the other account. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
All right, awesome.
Close. Now I want that account over here. So account range. I want it to bring it in here. So I'm going to say equals, go back to my options page. There it is. Lock it down. Don't need to, but I will. Now I know I have it here, and I can refer to it easily right here. So for account number, I want to limit my account number. So I go to the account number. I don't want to return all the account numbers. Go back up to the function. And now I can do the account range is here. So point to this. Hit F4 to lock it down because again, it's going to keep going down row by row by row. We don't want this to move down. Say OK. Now, when we run this, it asks me all of that. And I can say run. Boom, much faster, isn't it? OK. And it left out the ones that had a zero balance.
Nice. Very nice.
OK. So that's how this works. So there's quite a few different little functions that we held in there that we learned how to use. Now, when you're doing this with GL accounts, if we're doing some sort of statement that we want to group accounts, because this is one account per line, right? We might want to say, well, I want these 5 accounts to be one line, and I want the description to be this. Now, we're going to use it a little differently, okay? Everything here we did is using the GL function. I told you that that one's limited in some of the functionality that it can do. What you can do is you can do a few different things though. Notice we have the account number is returning every single account number. Well, maybe I don't want that. So what I could do, okay, is I can come down here. Now, this could be a whole new sheet. I'm just leaving it on this sheet for now because we've already defined some things. But let's say that I wanted, I don't know, I wanted this description to be AR number 1. I know it's not good description, but, and I want this to be multiple accounts. I want this to be account, let me just grab this. I want this to be account that to account 140. Okay. Now, forget what you see up here right now. Okay. I'm going to put this, I'm going to move this off to one of my hidden spots. Okay. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to say, well, I want a range of accounts that are predefined to be added up and put, and I want this description. It wouldn't know what description to pull because I've got multiple accounts. So I can't tell it to pull the description of this because this is 5 different accounts. So what I can do is I can refer to this when I'm doing my balance. So it knows to pull this range for this row. As opposed to right now, up here, it was just looking here. Well, instead of looking there, I would tell it, look here, for instance. So now I give it the description I want. I say this is the range that is going to make this up and then report back on the balance. So far, so good. So
Yep.
again, let me create it from scratch so we don't cheat, because I could just come over here and copy this down, but we won't do that. I can come over here, I could do GL again, where, okay, now we're not doing this one. Remember, we did a replicator. We said what was a replicator, and it defines the row. Here we're defining the row. We're not letting it define the row, so it's not a replicator. We're telling it what we want. And we're not going to show the GL account number because we're just going to show the descriptions. I don't know why this keeps moving behind. So, oh my goodness. Stop it. Okay, so where? Well, stop it. We want the cell. Again, we're not using the rows. Okay. I'm not sure why it keeps disappearing on me. Okay. So what do we want? Oh my goodness. What do we want? We want the balance again. And I want it to stop disappearing on me. Would be really nice. What account do I want? I want this range of accounts. So I'm going to click here till it comes in here. Okay. Now I could lock it down, not lock it down. If we're going to move other ones, in this case, I'm not going to need to lock it. I'm just going to leave it. What period do we want? Well, again, we want this same period, right? We want this start period. We want the end period to be this. Now, that's really all we need. Okay. We're not using this account range because we're defining the accounts that we want on this line. I can click OK. And now this is just going to be the sum of these over that range of dates.
Awesome.
And then the next row, I might have a different range, and that's AR2 or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. Makes sense?
Yep.
I run it. Again, it's not going to look at this on my bottom section, so it doesn't matter. So those are the highlights of how you use the system. Any questions on any of that?
It's fantastic.
So another thing to keep in mind is I can have as many sheets down here as I want. I can only have one options sheet, okay, that's going to run when you first run the report. But if I have 3 different sheets, how this came to 31 is interesting. But when I have different sheets, they all run at the same time. So I can have a P&L, right, and a balance sheet. And obviously they work together. But when I click to run, they'll both run and the report will have the data in each of the tabs. So there's good and bad to that. So the good is I can have these 5 reports all run at the same time. If I define 5 different tabs of reports, and each report can be something different, but reporting off the same options. Bad is it's going to run all 5. I can't say just run this tab, right? So just something to keep in mind. Another is it doesn't like having multiple Excel documents open at once. Sometimes it gets confused. So only have one document in Excel open at one time when you're running the reports, or even creating reports, I think. Because you're always going back and forth between creation and testing. So just something to keep in mind. So I was going to go over a few more little options up at the top here. So there was snippets that I said we'd come back to and stuff like that. So at the top of a sheet, I may have, you know, all the time, I might have right here, ABC company, blah, 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 blah. I always want that up there. I don't want to have to type it every time. I could save that as a snippet. Okay, boom. It, again, keeps disappearing. I can add it as a, oh, come on. I can add it as a snippet. All right, well, if I hit the plus, it would add it as a snippet there, and then I can always on another sheet just put that snippet on the other sheet. Okay, boom. I can go to another sheet and I can use a snippet and put it right here, right? So when it doesn't disappear like this, it would normally work. Okay. So you could put that snippet, you can name it too, but you can put that snippet wherever it is that you want.
Okay, now you went to, can you do that again? I'm sorry, I was answering an email.
Okay. So if you have something that you want to use, it could be a complicated formula, it could be just, I had here, assuming like I have the same sort of title and formatted and everything I want, I can add it as a snippet here, which is just saving it. Right?
Okay.
And I can call it blah, 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 blah.
Okay, got it.
Then you can use it somewhere else. That's really the only idea. It's not used a lot, but it's what it is. Now, so these two in the middle here we haven't used. Okay. So Report Wizard, I don't really use a lot, and Table Builder, I do use sometimes. Table Builder is a bit different. Report Wizard kind of walks you through creating the report. I'll show that to you in a minute. And Table Builder, that one lets you return data, not in a report format, but in a regular table format in Excel, as an Excel table. Everybody familiar with an Excel table?
Yep.
Right. So you'd have the column headings, and then you'd have all the detail below it. And it's named as a table. So it knows it's a table because a table means something to Excel, right? Versus just the information without being in a table. What that will do, Table Builder builds the table for the data that you want returned, which then lets you build a pivot off of that. So that's helpful at times because then you can slice and dice that data using slicers as part of Excel, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with as well. So that's when you want to do that. That's when you use this Table Builder. Okay. Again, most of the stuff you'll do is what we just did, but you may not be using the GL. You might use NL and NF.
Right.
Later on, we'll go over what NP is, not today. So I wanted to show you was that you have the ability to create this same thing that we just did. We could do using the NL and NF functions. We didn't need GL. Now, in this case, it's much simpler when you're dealing with the general ledger to just use the GL function because it's already GL smart. Okay, so you want to use that. But I'm assuming you're going to want to maybe do some other kinds of reports and that don't necessarily rely on the GL. And if that's the case, NL and NF are the only way to do it. Okay, but you can use those to do GL reporting as well. And you can do the same thing as we did. Okay, so I don't know if we want to build something there. Do you plan on using this for, it sounded like you plan on using this for other functionality in GP and beyond.
Yeah, yeah. So David, so in addition to financial statements, we do quite a bit of cost reporting. For instance, I give an example for the Medicaid cost report. We have to report on our actual cost of vaccines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of for Division 1, right? Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, well, those costs would be in your GL though, right? Or do you have to break that out? Do you have to break that out by like a vendor or something?
So we will have to break it out actually by the unit, by the actual item description.
Okay.
For each individual purchase.
So where do you keep that information now?
Well, I mean, it flows through our AP system, and
Okay.
I believe we can get it up to GL.
Okay. Right. So depending on how that data is, right, in your GL system, I'm sorry, in your AP, let me give you a little example of some stuff with this. So let's take a look. Actually, let me come out of this. Maybe we'll just save this. Training. Okay. Come out of this. We'll just open up a new one. Okay. So again, you may want to highlight these so that you know not to touch them. And the first time you actually do a run, it will create that little auto thing and stuff like that. So, well, what we could do, so let me deal with the payables for now, right? Because if you have to pull stuff from payables, maybe in this scenario, I'm not sure totally yet, but you can also mix and match things, which is what's helpful. So if I come over here, we have the NL and NF. Again, they work together. I like thinking of as L as a link and F as a field. Okay. So if I come over here, okay, what do I want? So maybe I want to report on vendors. We're just going to keep it kind of wide open right now. Okay. So if I do rows, again, rows is a replicator, and it tells you insert a copy for a current row for each value. So if I do that, what table do I want? Well, you either have to know the GP table, right? Or you would pick the rows. You would pick the name. Why is it not showing me anything here? Oh, I have favorites on. No. If you, oh, by the way, if you click favorites here, then it's only going to show you the ones that you've favorited already.
Yep.
I'm not sure why it's not showing me stuff right now. Oh, I know why. Up here in my settings, the default wasn't, I didn't set it to your company. These two have to be set. We only have GP, so this can only be GP. But this, since you have multiple companies, it wants to know which company you want to base this off of. Now, again, in a report, you can report off of multiple ones. You can select it as you're defining these functions, but it needs a default. All right, so now if I go back here, I could do NL. What? We're going to do a row. A table. So let's see, we have a Jet has one. So Jet vendor. Vendor master.
Yeah, that's fine. Just use that's fine.
Yeah, so we could do that. Now, I'm not going to return a field here yet. I'm just going to click OK. Let's just take a look here now. If I run this, doesn't have a master key needs. Okay, so that didn't work. I'm a little surprised. Let me go back. Design. Guess they want to know the fields that I want to use. So now I could select multiple fields out of here that I want. Let's say I
Yeah.
want there. You can see the types of fields that they're pulling. Again, these jet ones are ones that they've pulled.
Mm-hmm.
So they have all the normal stuff. Here's the vendor name. Pull the state.
That's fine. You speak anyone. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, you get the idea.
Yep.
And maybe I want their balance, build a day, year to day, you know, all this kind of stuff. Maybe I don't want, we'll leave those out for now. Okay. And I think account number. Vendor number. Okay. Oh, crap. Sorry. If you don't click right, you mess it all up. Vendor number, vendor name. Pick the state. I think that's good enough for now. I hit enter and it puts them in there. If I click OK, now it puts all this information in there, which is fine.
I see.
All right, but I'm going to hide this because we don't want to see this. We want to just refer to this. Okay. So if I come over here to the next one, I could say vendor name, right, and state. I don't know what else we had. Actually, we had vendor ID. You get the idea. And I'm going to put fit to all of these. Okay. And this actually has to move up because we're going to put the actual information here. So now this is going to be an NF, right? The NF works with the NL. So we got the link to the data. Now we want to put the fields we want. Wants to know where's the key. The key is over here, this one, the C5 that we just defined. Okay, I'm going to lock this down. Oops. I'm going to lock this down so that the C doesn't change, but the row can change. So it'll copy down automatically when we run it, right? It replicates down. But I'm going to copy this formula. What field do I want? I want the vendor name. Done. Okay, I can copy this across over here and then just change this to the ID. Now, if I know the actual name of the field, I could actually just retype it up here. Okay, I didn't know it correctly, so that's probably not going to work. So if I come back in here, click this. Let's see what it's supposed to be. Vendor number, that's why. Okay.
I'm sorry, David. You're gonna forgive me, but can you go back and do this again? I got lost at the vendor name.
Sure.
At the NF. I'm sorry, the NF.
So this first one, let's read it again. Come up to NF. Again,
Yep.
Once you define an NL, the NFs report the fields off that NL or that link. So now when I come over here, I can put NF. I'm going to point to that link. This key is that link, that NL. So it's this one right here. And you don't have to do this, but for copying formulas, you want to. And hit it 3 times. I want to leave the C. So when I copy this over to E and F, I want it to not move the C column.
Right.
But when it copies down, I want the 5 to go to 6, 7, 8, 9 as it replicates automatically. Now, if you didn't want to copy it and you wanted to do this manually in each one, you didn't need to do the dollar sign, but it's just kind of advanced stuff. Pick the field. This is going to be the name. Double click, puts it there, copy. Okay. Now all I did was I Yeah, now I just copied this across and I have to change only the field. Now, if I knew, now and again, I know this one's called number because I just saw it. So I could actually change this to say number. I don't have to bring it up in that whole, I don't have to click the function and do it. If I know what goes there, I could type it and you'll see now it brought it in.
Yep.
And this is the state, but we'll click on the NF function. We'll change this to state. So now this is hidden, this is staying here. We're gonna bold, oops, we're gonna bold this. Okay. And we can run this.
Awesome.
Okay. Now, this is kind of cool, but maybe I want it by vendor name order,
You sort it.
right? Or maybe I want it by state and then by vendor name, right? So you can do sorting, which we didn't get to yet, which is what we're going to get to. So now I have this in here. I have the stuff. The reason these are blank is you have a blank vendor in your system, obviously. So that's why these are blank. Otherwise, it would show the first one. But so you could do sorting. Let's say I wanted it by name. If I come in here, actually, I think you do it. I think you can do it here. So we want vendor name. So do by vendor name. See this little up and down arrows here?
Yep.
Okay. Plus and minus, how it changes it, and then it goes away. So this is, you have ascending and descending and then none. Okay, we don't want it to filter by anything, but I have to put something here. So asterisk means everything. Okay. Click OK. So now when I run this, sorted by name.
Awesome.
I wanted it by state and then name. Come back to here. Again, I'm doing this on the NL. Okay. I want the vendor name down here. Now, you can't just move them, I don't think. You have to copy it and paste it down or redo it. It's kind of annoying, but that's how it works. So here I wanted, instead of the name, I wanted the city, I mean the state, right? Got all of these fields. State, we want all states, so that's okay. And we want it ascending. Now if I click OK and run, now we have all the Arizonas, alphabetically, etc.
And if you wanted to print this report,
You're using the normal functionality in Excel. So you can go to File, Print. If you want to set headings, you can make this your headings so that it repeats on every top of the page. Familiar how to do that in Excel?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do that same stuff. That's all normal Excel functionality. That'll still work the same way. Okay. So then if I wanted to have their balance or something over here, I could do that too, right? So I will come over here, go to design. I always remember to go to design. It's easy to forget that. Okay. And this is going to be now, I didn't predefine that I wanted balance in there, so I'm going to have to add that in. So I come back to here. Needed balance also. So it's called balance. So I'll just add it in here. Now you'll see when we deal with actual, that there's ways where you don't even have to define this field in here. And then you'll have all the all of the info that you need, but I didn't want to get to that yet. So now I updated that. I come over here, right? Now I can copy and paste this over here, and I can change this to balance, or I could go into NF and you'll see that I have balance there. Double click, okay. I'll want to format this $, okay, run.
And then you have balance.
Right, and again, there's more functionality you can get out of this. Now this is pulling the balance from that table. You might want to do stuff where you're doing it in certain ranges, in which case that balance is just a static field that's in GP. So you don't, that's a current balance. That's how GP keeps that field. So in this case, if we want to do balance as of a certain date and stuff like that, then we want to pull this number, not from the same table. I want to pull it from the vendor transaction table. Okay, which next time we're going to get into how you do lookups between tables. So you can list all of the account numbers, let's say, but I want to see the transactions that make up some range of dates or something like that, right? So when you do that kind of stuff, now we need to look something up in another table, in which case then we're doing a lookup. And if you paid close attention, that there was a lookup field. Yeah, there was a lookup, right, function inside of these jet functions that lets us look something up, and that's where we use the first a lot, that first function, which you'll see. So those are the basics behind how this works.
This is great.
So I would encourage you to go in once we have yours set up and try the browser and try the GL, because those are the easier ones to use, and play with them a bit. Next time, we'll continue learning more about the L, the NL, and NF, and after that point, you can start playing with those. I mean, if you want to, and you feel you're advanced enough, you can, but definitely do the GL and the browser. That's to get used to stuff.